Okay, friends, Jim here from Storm Warning News. And while I'm on the topic of dreams, should be reporting news. I'll be digging for news, but going to share this one from a couple nights ago. And I'll preface this with a dream that someone very, very near and dear to me shared with me about a tornado and a plane crash and people crying in the plane. This plane crash occurred in the town where I live, but that could be symbolic. The plane, she said, was broken in half, and there was only a crew on the plane. I've gotten some clearer details from her. The plane was broken in half. It wasn't a jet airliner, but it was not a small single-engine plane either. Maybe something like a commercial jet. And she heard the crew of the plane crying in pain inside the plane. No passengers. Now this leads me to this. 2 nights ago, that would have been Thursday night, I had a dream of a town in this area, a village, upscale village, not far from where I live, about 15 miles. There are no railroad tracks in this village, but yet in the dream there were. And the railroad tracks ran parallel right alongside a main artery street through the village. I found myself there confused. It was dark. It was either nighttime, early morning. Again, as I explained in my previous dream about 3232, I find myself being confused as to why I'm there. I don't know why I'm there. I don't have any business there. There was a train on the tracks. Again, the tracks run parallel with it's actually a state route that becomes one of the main streets as it goes through the village. Single set of railroad tracks parallel, right up next to it. And they aren't really there, but they're there in the dream. There was a woman, and she was very similar to the woman that appeared in the 3232 dream very briefly. She looked very white, ghostly. And of course, there is no such thing as ghosts, but she looked ghostly, had wavy hair about down to her shoulders that appeared white with streaks of dark in it. And she was very nervous, very concerned. She was telling me things I couldn't understand. She kept patting me on the shoulder as if to add weight, to add emphasis to what she was telling me. And this happened, and that happened, and that happened. And she just kept patting me on the shoulder. And then we were standing before this train parked on the tracks. And what was peculiar about this is that there were two diesel locomotives on this train. And they were from the Erie Lackawanna Railroad, which has been gone for decades. It was absorbed into, if you know anything about railroad history, I believe it was absorbed into Conrail, which eventually became part of CSX. The Erie Lackawanna used to run through parts of this area, but it never ran through this village I am describing because there's no railroad in the village. There was an Erie Lackawanna F unit. How do I describe an F unit? Again, I'm a bit of a train buff, so I know some of this stuff. It was an F unit. It was one of those. I wish I had a photo here I could show you. You'd often see an F unit. They had the two windows that were kind of oval or oblong, and they went at an angle like this, and then it had a nose with a headlight right in the center. The front of the locomotive, you would look at one of these and almost think that it looked like a face, if you can picture that. Again, you see them very rarely anymore. Sometimes you see them pulling excursion trains, but they haven't been produced in decades, probably since the 60s, maybe before. There was an Erie Lackawanna F unit, and attached to the front of that was a more standard EMD type of road switcher. Again, Erie Lackawanna. Both units were Erie Lackawanna. There were 3 freight cars behind the F unit, and then 3 freight cars in front of the second locomotive. So what you had was the 2 locomotives were in the center of the train, not at the front pulling it, but in the center. So you had 3 freight cars. I remember seeing a gondola, a couple of box cars, 3 freight cars, 2 locomotives, Erie Lackawanna, and then 3 more freight cars in front of it. There was steam or smoke coming out of the back of the F unit, and I was focused on the F unit. The other locomotive in front of it was there, but though it wasn't important. And this woman was, we've got to get them out of there. We've got to get them out of there. And again, you'd only have the crew. This wasn't a passenger train, so I believe there was a crew of 2, an engineer and a conductor in the F unit, the second locomotive. And I could see the steam or smoke. It was white coming out of that unit. And she was very high strung. She was panicking. And there was a lot of fog off to the side. My feeling was something has happened to this train that shouldn't be here. Again, this train shouldn't be here in this town because there's no railroad tracks in this town, and yet there were. So I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about the plane from the dream that was shared with me. And that same night, 2 nights ago, I dreamt of a projectile that started out as a missile and turned to a plane and crashed in this area where I live. Why it would start as a projectile like a missile and then turn into a small plane and then crash, I don't know. And what I'm getting from this is planes and trains. Trouble with planes and trains. An incident with planes and trains. Don't know what it means to you. Again, this woman, she was hard to decipher. She was white like a ghost with wavy hair about down to her shoulders. My sense was she was probably in her early 50s in age. Frantic, touching me on the shoulder, telling me things I couldn't understand. But then she was able to convey to me that we had to get the crew, or whoever was in that locomotive, the F unit, out. And there was the steam, and there was the smoke. But the train was just set there idling. It hadn't crashed. And what was peculiar was that the 2 locomotives were in the center of the 6 cars, 3 in front, 3 in back. It was a freight train. It was not a passenger train. Trains and planes. Don't know what it means. I can't get any clarity on it. Wanted to share that one with you. Again, nighttime, just like the dream of the 3232. Nighttime in the case of the train, but darkness with the 3232. Dark conditions. Dark conditions. Trains, planes, numbers, darkness. That is what you get out of these 2 previous dreams I had. Let me know what you think. It's kind of a mess in my head right now. The whole thing is disturbing and confusing. Is it portending a future event having to do with planes and trains? Take from it what you will. Stay prayed up. Stay focused on Jesus. This is Jim signing off. God bless you.